Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're setting the stage for a truly incredible cosmic thought experiment. Have you ever just looked up at the sky and wondered what it would actually be like if our solitary sun had a companion? Well, we're going to explore the dramatic, beautiful, and, let's be real, ultimately terrifying reality of Earth under binary suns. We'll be piecing together the science from our source material to see exactly what would happen to our home if we suddenly had two stars lighting up the sky.
Okay, let's dive into this. The premise itself feels like pure cinematic science fiction, doesn't it? We've all got that iconic movie image in our heads, right? Standing on an alien desert planet, watching twin suns slowly dip below the horizon. It's a gorgeous sci-fi dream. But the reality? The reality of what would actually happen to our planet if a second sun suddenly entered our solar system is profoundly dramatic. We're going to contrast that romanticized dream with the harrowing, utterly chaotic reality we would actually face. Section 1. Caught in a binary system. The delicate orbital dance. So if a second massive gravitational body entered our solar system, our predictable little world would essentially face one of two paths. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast. Consider the first scenario. If this second sun were a smaller, dimmer red dwarf star orbiting at a safe distance, the effects would be largely visual. Pretty cool, right? But contrast that with a second possibility. If that second star were a massive, bright star comparable to our current sun, well, our environment wouldn't just change, it would literally slide into absolute burning chaos. Let's assume for a second we get lucky with that safer visual scenario. The sky above us would become a breathtaking, ever-changing canvas of light. Because of the complex orbits of the two stars, humanity would get to witness spectacular double sunrises and double sunsets. Imagine looking up and seeing two distinct disks of light. You know, our familiar brilliant white-yellow sun, but joined by a deep, glowing crimson sphere. Together, they'd cast these overlapping, multicolored shadows across the ground, literally painting the landscape in hues we've never naturally seen before. It would be an absolute sensory wonder. Section 2. The end of true night. The annoyance becomes chaos. Unfortunately, that sense of visual wonder we just talked about, it would very quickly transition into desperate urgency. Because as our planet passes between these two stars, the mechanics of our days would completely shatter. As the source material points out, the concept of night would be entirely redefined. Think about what that actually means in practice. True darkness, that restorative pitch-black night we absolutely rely on to rest and recover, would just vanish. Instead, we'd be plunged into a perpetual, eerie twilight, or worse, continuous glaring daytime. This total elimination of night would throw the biological clocks of absolutely every single living organism on Earth into complete confusion. Section 3. Total ecological biological collapse. The domino effect of daylight. Let's move to this next part and see how this builds, because it goes from a sleep annoyance to an absolute horror. This cascading biological failure happens incredibly fast. First off, nocturnal predators, who strictly rely on the cover of night to hunt, would face immediate starvation. And conversely, prey animals would suddenly have absolutely nowhere to hide in that glaring, endless light. As a result, boom, entire food chains collapse overnight. And plant life? It wouldn't fare much better. Subjected to continuous photosynthesis, they would accelerate their growth cycles so fast that they'd exhaust the soil's nutrients at an entirely unsustainable pace. And us humans, stripped of our natural 24-hour circadian rhythm, we'd suffer from chronic sleep deprivation and a total breakdown of our traditional agricultural calendars. Literally, no amount of blackout curtains or espresso is going to save us from the profound psychological fatigue of a sun that never, ever truly sets.
Section 4. A permanent greenhouse effect. The physical climate crumbles.
Now, that biological collapse we just discussed, it's quickly dwarfed by what happens to our physical environment. Adding a second massive star spikes our solar radiation dramatically. Hundreds of meters. That is the massive number you need to focus on right now. Because of the incredible surge in temperature, the polar ice caps wouldn't just shrink over a few decades. They'd melt entirely within a matter of years. This would cause global sea levels to rise by hundreds of meters, quickly and completely swallowing the world's coastal megacities under the waves. I mean, everything from New York to Tokyo would just be wiped off the map.
And all that excess heat doesn't just melt the ice. It violently churns the atmosphere. As the oceans warm significantly, they become the perfect, endless fuel for permanent, hypervelocity hurricanes. We're not talking about seasonal storms that come and go, giving us time to rebuild. No, these would be relentless, catastrophic weather systems battering the remaining continents without pause, just slowly stripping away whatever infrastructure humanity managed to move inland. 50 degrees Celsius. As the relentless storms rage on the coasts, the inland simply bakes. What was once the fertile breadbasket of the world would turn into scorched, unlivable wastelands where temperatures routinely surpass 50 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, that's over 120 degrees Fahrenheit just as a daily baseline. Needless to say, no amount of SPF is going to help us here. The Earth's surface would become a cracked, hostile desert, utterly incapable of sustaining the complex life it once fostered.
Section 5. The final orbital deep freeze. The cosmic perspective.
Ultimately, the long-term survival of our world depends entirely on orbital stability. And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem. The gravitational pull of a second star would constantly tug at Earth in competing directions. We would be stripped of our neat, predictable circular orbit and violently forced into a chaotic, elongated ellipse.
Let's walk through what this chaotic orbit actually means for our seasons, because it is brutal. In step 1, during parts of the year, the planet would be pulled dangerously close to the twin fires of the suns. This proximity would literally boil the oceans and bake the crust to ash. Then, in step 2, that gravitational slingshot would hurl us far out into the freezing void of space. We'd be oscillating violently between an absolute cosmic furnace and a planetary deep freeze.
To summarize this grim climax, this constant, extreme cycling ensures total planetary destruction. Earth would be fundamentally transformed into a highly unstable, completely inhospitable desert world. The delicate, steady balance that allows life to thrive here, that careful equilibrium of temperatures, seasons, and light, would be permanently erased by the chaotic gravitational and thermal forces of a two-star system. Which leaves us with this final, sobering thought. Does our fragile existence rely entirely on the perfectly solitary warmth of our lone sun? Well, the evidence we've explored today strongly suggests it absolutely does. While twin suns definitely make for incredible science fiction and breathtaking visuals on the silver screen, our single predictable star is the exact anchor we need to survive. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it makes you appreciate that single sunrose just a little bit more tomorrow morning.